You might not think so, but sometimes constraints can be your best friend. Boundaries can push you to be more creative. Take, for example, the constraint of a limited palette. Hi, I'm Gail Sibley, and today I'm going to be painting prune plums in a bowl. And I'm going to be using UArt paper, and I'm going to be using, for my pastels, Terry Ludwig's Best Loved Basics. Now, when I think prune plums, I think purple. And as you can see in this set, there is only really a muted purple. And I sort of think of those plums as being kind of just lovely, this lovely glowy purple. Now in here we have a mid-tone blue, a mid-value blue, and we have a red, so we can do something with that. Now the bowl is kind of a white bowl, and it's got dark blue decoration, no dark blue, a kind of a creamy white and a pale blue. So we are going to get creative. That's where the challenge comes in. So let's see what I can do with the constraint of a limited palette. I drew up my pastel using a yellow Holbein pastel rather than my usual vine charcoal. I decided I wanted to keep it light against the light UArt paper. The only thing is I found that, of course, I could barely see it. But I still made it, I could still see where the plums were. So the first thing I do, as I always do, is put in my 3 values, pretty much using 3 colored pastels. So the darkest value first was the red, then the middle value blue, and then the sort of ochre yellowy color is the lighter one. Now I am using a very limited palette, and we talked about the constraint of a limited palette. I'm using Terry Ludwig's Best Loved Pastels, and like I said at the beginning, there is a limitation with the pastel colors available, colors and values. So I need to sort of make it work. So even though that yellow, that sort of ochre yellow, isn't as light as I'd like it to be, I can always go over with the creamy light color, which I've sort of done on that upper right hand side. When I'm starting, I put the main shapes in, and in a very general way, because I know as I go along I will refine those shapes. I'll refine them using the negative space, so carving around the main subject, as well as, of course, working on the subject itself. Now I chose the sunlight just came out there. The whole thing just warmed up. I decided to make the plums and their cast shadows the main dark area. And of course the cast shadow of the bowl, which is why I started with the red. The cast shadows on the left are a little bit lighter when I'm working from life, because I am working from life. They look a bit lighter and cooler too on the left hand side, which is why I've taken the blue and sort of run it across those shadows. So the whole thing is really refining the shapes, refining the colors as much as I can with the limitation, the constraint of the limited palette, and refining the temperature, cools and warms. So there is a warm light on this subject, and of course the warm light is warming up anywhere that the light hits, and everywhere else is cool. And you can see I'm layering and layering and tweaking as I go. Just a little bit of warmth in there. We talked about the decoration of the bowl, that it had a dark blue decoration, but I don't have a dark blue, and so I just run that sort of blue line around over the yellow, and that is just enough to give an indication that there is some sort of decoration on the bowl. It doesn't really matter what is on the bowl, because nobody else is going to see the original subject. Of course, if you're doing a commission or something and it has to look very much like what you're painting, you wouldn't necessarily restrict yourself to the limited palette like I'm doing. But you know, it's amazing to see what you can do when you have the constraint of a limited palette, and I would encourage you to try that. Believe me, it can be absolutely frustrating. I am definitely not saying that it isn't, but it's amazing how you can push yourself, and it's also partly your mind, but also intuitive working. You know, once you know you're working with values, you know what colors you're working with, cools and warms, you can sort of push yourself to try and deal with these the constraint of the limited palette. So don't be afraid of it. Go ahead and you know, just give it a shot, because you will be amazed by what you come out with. So do it. And I'm really quite pleased with the way this one came out, because like I really wasn't sure it was going to work. And there are the 10 pastels I used, and there is the final piece. Whew. I wasn't sure in the middle of that if it was all going to come out, but I think in the end it was just fine. So can you see how the constraint of a limited palette can push your creativity? I mean, that's where your artistic license comes in. Now, if you'd like to see the photograph of the setup of what I painted and my initial thumbnail and some other notes, then head on over to howtopastel.com. And while you're there, why not subscribe to the blog? And speaking of subscribing, why not subscribe to my YouTube channel? And then you'll get my videos as soon as they come out. Please like, share, and comment on this video if you found it useful. And until next time, keep pastelling. Thank you so much for watching. Today, Harry Ludwig's. Whoops. Okay. Constraints. No. Constraints. You may think that constraints are bad or something. And I don't know what else to say.